The stars had always been quiet for humanity. For 800 years, humans had traveled between worlds, built cities on distant planets, and spread across 17 star systems. But they had learned one important lesson early. The galaxy was not a friendly place. So humans kept their voices low and their weapons ready. Admiral Park stood on the command bridge of the Eternal Vigil, Earth's largest space station. He was an old man now, with gray hair and deep lines on his face. He had served in the fleet for 40 years. He had seen things that would give most people nightmares. But today, watching the red dots appear on his screen, he felt something he had not felt in a long time. Not fear, something colder, something patient. "Admiral," said Lieutenant from her station. She was young, barely 30, but her voice was steady. "We are detecting ships coming out of fold space. Many ships." "How many?" asked, though he already knew the answer would be bad. His fingers moved across her controls. Her face went pale. 12,000, sir. They are forming attack patterns." 12,000 warships. Humanity's entire fleet numbered only 847. The math was simple and cruel. Commander Lee, second in command, stepped closer to the main screen. She was a tall woman with sharp eyes and short black hair. Nothing surprised her anymore, but even she took a slow breath when she saw the enemy formation. "They call themselves the Dominion," continued. "Our translation systems are working on their broadcast now." The message came through moments later. It was simple and direct. "Creatures of this system, you will surrender all your worlds. You will submit to harvest. Any resistance will result in your complete destruction. This is not a request. This is your fate." Listen to the message 3 times. He had heard similar words before. Different aliens, different languages, but always the same meaning. Surrender or die. "Open a channel to their command ship," he ordered. Looked at him with surprise but did as she was told. A moment later, the main screen flickered and showed the face of the enemy commander. The creature was massive, easily 3 meters tall, with 4 arms and skin like dark metal. Its eyes glowed with a red light that seemed to pulse with anger. "I am High Warlord of the Dominion," the creature said. Its voice was deep and grinding, like rocks being crushed together. "You are the leader of these humans." "I am Admiral Park of the United Earth Defense Force," replied calmly. "I speak for humanity in matters of defense." Made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Then speak your surrender, small creature. Make this easy for your people. Those who submit quickly are treated with mercy. Those who resist are made into examples." Did not react to the insult. He had been called worse things by better enemies. "High Warlord," he said slowly, making sure every word was clear. "You are entering protected space. I am giving you one warning. Only one. Turn your ships around. Leave this system. Go back to wherever you came from. We do not want war, but we are prepared for it." For a long moment, stared at him through the screen. Then the alien laughed again, louder this time. "You threaten us? You with your tiny fleet of 800 ships. We have conquered 400 star systems. We have destroyed civilizations that ruled entire galaxies. Your 17 little worlds are nothing to us. Less than nothing. We will harvest your planets and use your people as fuel for our engines." Let the alien finish. He had expected this response. They always responded this way. "I am not threatening you," said quietly. "I am warning you. There is a difference. A threat is what you make when you want to scare someone. A warning is what you give when you know what is coming. I know what is coming, High Warlord. I am trying to save your people from it." Leaned closer to the screen. His red eyes burned brighter. "Save us? You cannot even save yourselves. In 12 hours my fleet will reach your inner planets. In 24 hours your Earth will burn. In 1 week every human in every system will be dead or in chains. There is nothing you can do to stop this." "Then you have made your choice," said. He reached out and ended the transmission himself. The bridge was silent. Every officer watched their admiral, waiting for orders. waiting to see what humanity would do against impossible odds. Stepped forward. Her voice was low, meant only for. "They really think we are weak," she said. "They see our small numbers and think we are easy prey." "They always do," replied. "Every species that has come to take our worlds, every empire that has looked at humanity and seen victims instead of warriors, they all make the same mistake." "What mistake is that, Admiral?" Turned to face her. There was no fear in his eyes, only a deep, tired patience. "They see how few ships we have. They count our guns and our soldiers, but they never ask why we have survived this long with so few. They never wonder what we have learned in 800 years of living in a dangerous galaxy. They never think that maybe, just maybe, we have been preparing for exactly this moment." He looked back at the screen, at the 12,000 red dots moving slowly toward Earth. "Commander, activate Protocol Remembrance. Send the signal to all hidden installations. Wake up the belt. Tell our stealth ships to take their positions." Nodded and began giving orders. Around the bridge, officers moved with quick purpose. There was fear in their hearts, but there was also something else, something harder. Walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Armada was coming to destroy everything humanity had built. They were confident. They were powerful. They had conquered hundreds of worlds. But they had never faced humans before. "You were warned," said softly to the distant enemy. "Remember that when this is over. You were warned and you did not listen. Everything that happens now is your own choice." The stars remained silent, but deep within the solar system, humanity was waking up, and the Dominion had no idea what was waiting for them. The invading Armada ignored humanity's warning, their last mistake. Part 2: The Trap Springs. The Armada moved through human space like a great metal river. 12,000 warships, each one bristling with weapons, each one carrying soldiers eager for conquest. High Warlord stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion's Wrath, and watched the stars pass by with satisfaction. His sensors showed him everything he needed to know. The human fleet was gathering near Mars, that small red planet close to their home world. 800 ships waiting to die. Almost felt sorry for them. Almost. "Warlord," said one of his officers, "we are passing the orbit of the 8th planet. No resistance detected. The humans appear to be concentrating all their forces near their inner worlds." "Of course they are," replied. "They know they cannot stop us in open space. They hope that fighting near their homes will give them some advantage. It will not, but let them have their hope. It makes the conquest when we crush it." The Armada continued forward. They passed the great ringed planet that humans called Saturn. They moved through the space between worlds without slowing down. Why would they slow down? There was nothing here but rocks and ice and emptiness. But the emptiness was watching them. Captain sat in the command chair of her ship, the Silent Promise. It was a small vessel designed for stealth rather than battle. For 3 weeks, she and her crew of 40 had been hiding in the shadow of one of Saturn's moons. They had kept their power at minimum levels. They had not transmitted any signals. They had simply waited. Now, watching the enemy fleet pass overhead like a great dark cloud, allowed herself a small smile. "All stealth units report ready," whispered Ensign from the communications station. She was young, only 22, on her first real mission. Her hands shook slightly, but her voice was steady. "Good," said. "Maintain silence, let them pass. They need to go deeper before we act." Across the solar system, similar scenes played out. In the asteroid belt, hidden among millions of tumbling rocks, weapons platforms waited in darkness. On the frozen moons of Jupiter, missile bays sat ready to open. Inside hollowed-out asteroids, thousands of unmanned combat drones waited for the signal that would wake them. Humanity had spent 300 years preparing for this moment. Every rock, every moon, every shadow in the solar system had been turned into a weapon, and they had no idea. On Earth, Deep beneath the mountains of Korea, Fleet Commander Shin watched the enemy's progress on a massive screen. He was surrounded by hundreds of officers, each one monitoring different parts of the defense network. "They are entering the asteroid belt now," reported analyst. She was an expert in enemy movement patterns, and she had been tracking the fleet since it first appeared. "Their formation is spread out. They are not expecting any resistance here." Nodded slowly. His hand rested near a red button on his console. One press and the trap would spring. But timing was everything. Too early and some enemy ships might escape. Too late and they might reach Earth before the defenses could stop them. "Let them come deeper," he said. "Let them think they are winning." Minutes passed. The Armada moved through the asteroid belt like a predator walking through tall grass. They did not see the danger hiding in the shadows. They did not notice the rocks that were positioned just a little too perfectly. They did not wonder why this system, which should have been defended, seemed so empty. "Warlord," said an officer suddenly, his voice confused, "I am detecting strange readings from some of the asteroids. They appear to be warming up." Frowned. "Warming up, what does that mean?" "I do not know, Warlord. The readings are unlike anything in our database. It almost looks like power systems coming online, but that is impossible. These are just rocks." On the bridge of the Dominion's Wrath, confusion spread. More officers reported similar readings. Asteroids all around them were changing, their surfaces cracking, their temperatures rising. Then the rocks opened. "Press the button." Across the asteroid belt, 2,000 weapons platforms activated at the same moment. Hidden doors slid open. Guns that had been sleeping for decades powered up in seconds. Missile tubes aimed at targets that had been tracked for hours. The first wave of rounds hit the fleet before they even knew what was happening. These were not ordinary bullets. They were metal slugs traveling at a significant fraction of the speed of light. They punched through shields like paper. They tore through armor like it was not there. In the first 30 seconds, 200 enemy ships died. Then the missiles came. Captain watched from her hiding spot as the night lit up with explosions. The formation, so perfect and proud just moments ago, shattered into chaos. Ships tried to turn to find the source of the attacks, but there was no single source. The attacks came from everywhere. "All stealth units," ordered, "begin your attack runs. Target their command ships, cut off their heads." The Silent Promise and 30 other stealth frigates emerged from hiding and dove into the chaos. They were small and fast and nearly invisible. They slipped between the burning wrecks of enemy vessels and fired torpedoes at point-blank range. High Warlord screamed orders that no one could hear. His communications were being jammed by systems his technicians could not even find. His sensors showed threats in every direction. His beautiful armada was dying around him. "How is this possible?" he roared. "They had only 800 ships. Where did these weapons come from?" No one could answer him. No one had answers. The Dominion had conquered 400 star systems, and they had never seen anything like this. They had never faced an enemy that turned empty space itself into a weapon. In his bunker on Earth, watched the destruction with cold eyes. "Welcome to the solar system," he said quietly. "Welcome to humanity's home. You were warned." The battle had only just begun, and already they had lost 1,000 ships, but there were still 11,000 more. The trap had sprung, but the killing was far from over. And somewhere in the chaos, the main human fleet was beginning to move. 800 ships against 11,000. The odds were still terrible. But odds meant nothing to humanity. They had faced worse. They had survived worse. And today, in the dark between worlds, they would show the galaxy why no one should ever ignore a human warning. The Armada was bleeding. What had been a perfect formation of 12,000 ships was now a broken mess of burning wreckage and scattered survivors. Hidden weapons continued to fire from every direction. Missiles screamed out of the darkness. Rounds punched holes through ships that had conquered entire worlds. But they were not beaten yet. They had lost nearly 3,000 vessels in the first hour, but they still had 9,000 more. And they were learning. Their surviving commanders were adapting, pulling their ships into groups, concentrating their shields and weapons. High Warlord screamed at his officers to restore order. Blood ran down his face from a wound he had received when his ship shook under fire. But he was still alive, and his flagship was still fighting. "Find their main fleet," he commanded. "Forget the hidden weapons. If we destroy their fleet, we destroy their ability to fight." His sensors finally located the human fleet, 800 ships moving out from Mars in a wedge formation. They were coming to meet the head-on. Bared his teeth in something like a smile. "Finally, a real battle. All ships concentrate on the enemy fleet. We will crush them with our numbers." The two forces rushed toward each other in the space between Mars and the asteroid belt. 9,000 warships against 800 human vessels. The math still favored the invaders. But Commodore O was not worried about math. He stood on the bridge of the Hammer of Dawn, the largest warship in the human fleet. Around him, his crew worked with calm efficiency. No one panicked. No one hesitated. They had trained for this moment their entire lives. "Enemy fleet closing," reported Lieutenant Commander from the tactical station. "They are coming in fast and angry. No formation discipline. They want to overwhelm us with numbers." "Then we will teach them that numbers are not enough," replied. "Signal all ships. Execute Pattern 16. Pattern 16 was a battle formation that human admirals had developed over centuries. Every ship knew its place. Every captain knew exactly where their allies would be and what they would do. Human ships did not fight as individuals. They fought as one giant weapon with 800 parts. The two fleets collided in a storm of fire and metal. Ships were larger and carried more guns, but human ships were faster and more coordinated. Where they fired in all directions, hopping to hit something, humans concentrated their fire on single targets. 5 or 6 human ships would focus on one enemy vessel, destroy it in seconds, then move to the next. Watch the battle unfold on his tactical display. Blue dots for human ships, red dots for the enemy. Red dots were disappearing faster than blue ones. "Their command structure is failing," observed. "They are not used to fighting an enemy that fights back like this. Each of their captains is acting independently. They have no coordination." "That is because they have never needed coordination," said. "They have always won through numbers and fear. They do not know how to fight a real war." The Hammer of Dawn plunged into the heart of the enemy formation. Its heavy guns tore through ships like a blade through flesh. Behind it, a squadron of human destroyers followed, protecting its flanks and finishing off damaged enemies. But they were learning. They were pulling back, trying to regroup. Some of their smarter captains were figuring out the human tactics and adjusting. The easy part of the battle was over. Meanwhile, Captain led her stealth squadron on a different mission. While the main fleets fought, she slipped around the edge of the battle, hunting for specific targets. "There," said Weapons Officer Nam, pointing at his screen. "They're supply ships, hidden behind their main formation." Study the targets. 20 large vessels, slower than warships but essential for keeping the fleet alive. They carried fuel, ammunition, repair equipment, and food. Without them, the fleet would die even if it won the battle. "All ships," she ordered, "torpedoes ready. Target the supply vessels, fire on my command." The stealth frigates crept closer, invisible against the chaos of battle. They came within killing range without a single enemy sensor detecting them. "Fire!" 32 torpedoes streaked toward the supply ships. They did not even see them coming. Explosions bloomed in the darkness, one after another, as the supply fleet died. Ensign Park, the youngest officer on the Silent Promise, watched the destruction with troubled eyes. "Captain," she said quietly, Those supply ships were not warships. They were not fighting us. We just killed thousands of beings who were only carrying food and fuel. Turned to face her. The captain's eyes were hard but not cruel. Yes, she said, we did. And tomorrow, those beings would have provided fuel for the warships that burned our cities. They would have carried food for soldiers who murdered our children. War is not clean, Ensign. It is not fair. The moment they crossed into our space with hostile intent, every ship in their fleet became our enemy. Every crew member who supported their invasion became responsible for what that invasion would have done. But it still feels wrong. It should feel wrong, agreed. The day it stops feeling wrong is the day we become like them. But feeling wrong does not mean we stop. It means we make sure this only happens when there is no other choice. We warned them. We gave them the chance to leave. They chose to stay. Everything that happens now is the result of their choice, not ours. Park nodded slowly. She did not look happy, but she understood. This was the nature of humans. They did not enjoy war. They did not seek death and destruction. But when war came to them, they fought with everything they had. They made terrible choices because the alternative was letting their children die. Back in the main battle, Commodore received reports of the supply fleet's destruction. He allowed himself a brief moment of satisfaction. The enemy was trapped now. They could not run. They could not resupply. They could only fight until they had nothing left. Signal the Admiral, ordered. Tell him they are contained. They are not going anywhere. On the eternal vigil, Admiral Park received the message. The first phase of the battle was over. Now came the harder part. Now came the killing. Looked at the tactical display. Thousands of ships, human and fighting and dying in the darkness between worlds. Every blue dot that disappeared was a ship full of his people. Every death was someone's child, someone's parent, someone's love. This is the cost, he murmured to himself. This is what survival costs. He straightened his uniform and made a decision. Prepare my shuttle, he ordered. I am going to the front. If humanity is going to win this war, I will be there to see it. 6 hours of battle had turned the space between Mars and the asteroid belt into a graveyard. Wreckage drifted in every direction. Some pieces were still burning, their fires fed by leaking oxygen. Other pieces were cold and dark, tombs for the crews that had died inside them. The Armada had lost nearly half its strength. 6,000 ships destroyed or disabled, millions of their soldiers dead. High Warlord's perfect invasion had become a nightmare that he could not wake up from. But humanity had paid a price too. 112 ships gone, over 3,000 crew members who would never go home. The cost of survival was written in blood. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of the Hammer of Dawn, having transferred his command to the front lines. Commodore stood beside him, both men watching the tactical display with tired eyes. They are regrouping near Mars, reported. Approximately 5,000 ships remaining. They have lost their supply line and their formation, but they still outnumber us badly. Nodded slowly, 5,000 against 700. The math was still terrible, but it was better than it had been. They are wounded and scared, said. Wounded animals are the most dangerous. They will fight harder now because they have nothing to lose. What are your orders, Admiral? Considered his options. He could continue the battle of attrition, slowly grinding down the enemy while losing more of his own ships. Or he could try something else. Something that might end this faster but would require taking a risk. Open a channel to the enemy flagship, he ordered. Lieutenant Commander looked surprised, but a moment later the face of High Warlord appeared on the screen. The alien looked terrible. His dark metal skin was cracked and bleeding in several places. One of his 4 arms hung limp at his side. His red eyes, once burning with arrogance, now flickered with something else. Pain, confusion, and perhaps for the first time fear. Admiral Park said. His grinding voice was weaker now. Have you called to accept my surrender? Despite everything, almost laughed. Even now, broken and bleeding, the leader could not imagine that he might be the one who should surrender. "No," replied simply. "I called to give you one more chance. Your fleet is cut off. Your supplies are destroyed. You cannot win this battle and you cannot escape. But you can still save what remains of your people. Order your ships to stand down. Surrender and we will treat your survivors fairly. Continue fighting and none of you will leave this system alive." Stared at him through the screen. For a long moment neither spoke. "Why?" finally asked. "Why did you fight like this? We have conquered hundreds of species. All of them surrendered when they saw our numbers. All of them accepted their fate. Why did humans resist? Why did you sacrifice so many of your own people when you could have simply submitted?" Thought about the question. It was a question many aliens had asked over the centuries. It was a question that had no simple answer. "Because submission is not in our nature," he said slowly. "You look at humans and you see small creatures with short lives and fragile bodies. You think we are weak because we do not have claws or armor or natural weapons, but you do not understand what we are." He stepped closer to the screen. "We are the species that survived ice ages by learning to make fire. We survived plagues by learning medicine. We survived ourselves by learning to work together. Every challenge that should have destroyed us only made us stronger. Every enemy that tried to conquer us became a lesson in how to fight better." Listened without interrupting. His red eyes never left his face. "You asked why we resist," continued. "We resist because we must, because our children deserve a future, because every human who has ever lived fought and bled and died so that the next generation could have a chance. We do not submit because submission is death. Not quick death like your weapons bring, but slow death. The death of everything we are and everything we could become." "Pretty words," growled, but his voice had lost its force. "But words do not win wars." "No," agreed. "Actions win wars, and our actions speak clearly. Half your fleet is gone, your supplies are dust. Every moment you continue this fight, more of your people die. I am offering you a way out. A chance to save something from this disaster. Take it or do not. But know this, if you choose to continue, we will not stop until every single one of your ships is destroyed. We will not show mercy because you chose not to accept it when it was offered." The two leaders stared at each other across the void of space. Two different species, two different ways of seeing the universe, one that conquered through fear and one that survived through determination. "You are strange creatures," said at last. "In 400 systems I have never met a species like you. You should have surrendered. You should have accepted your fate like all the others. Instead, you turned your entire system into a trap. You sacrificed your own people without hesitation. You fought like beings who have nothing to lose." "We had everything to lose," corrected. "Our homes, our families, our future. That is why we fought so hard. That is why we will keep fighting until the end." Closed his eyes. When he opened them again, some of the fire had returned. "I cannot surrender," he said. "The Dominion does not surrender. If I return home in defeat, my people will execute me and everyone who served under me. Our families will be enslaved. Our names will be erased. You offer me mercy, but my own people offer only death." Felt something unexpected. Pity. Not for the warlord who had come to destroy humanity, but for the being trapped by his own culture's cruelty. "Then you have already made your choice," said quietly. "I am sorry. Not for what we must do to your fleet, but for the system that gave you no other option." "Do not pity me," human said. "I came here to conquer your worlds and harvest your people. I would have killed billions without remorse. Save your pity for beings who deserve it." "Perhaps, but even monsters sometimes deserve a chance to be something else. You will not take that chance, so be it." Ended the transmission. The bridge was silent. Every officer had heard the conversation. Every human in the fleet had heard it because had broadcast it to all ships. They needed to know what they were fighting for. They needed to understand. "All ships," said, his voice carrying across the fleet, "the enemy has refused our offer of mercy. They have chosen to fight to the death. We will give them the death they seek. But remember why we fight. Not for conquest, not for glory. We fight so that our children can grow up free. We fight because we are human and humans do not surrender. Across 700 ships, crews prepared for the final battle. They checked their weapons. They said quiet prayers. Some held pictures of loved ones. Some simply closed their eyes and breathed. And then the fleet moved forward, toward the wounded enemy, toward the end of everything that had tried to build in human space. The breaking point had arrived. Now there was only the killing left to do. The final battle lasted 4 more hours. 4 hours of fire and death in the darkness between worlds. 4 hours of ships dying in bright explosions that lit up the void like new stars. They fought with the desperation of beings who knew they were doomed. They threw themselves at the human fleet again and again, trying to break through, trying to reach Earth, trying to salvage something from their failed invasion. But the humans held their lines. They fought with cold determination, refusing to give ground, refusing to let a single enemy ship reach their home. High Warlord died when his flagship, the Dominion's Wrath, was surrounded by 6 human destroyers. They pounded his ship for 15 minutes before the reactors finally exploded. He never surrendered. He never begged for mercy. He died as he had lived, refusing to accept that he could lose. When the last ship fell silent, the solar system was quiet again. No enemy transmissions, no weapons fire, just the drift of debris and the soft hum of human ships that had survived. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of the Hammer of Dawn and looked at the tactical display. Where 12,000 red dots had once filled the screen, there was now only darkness. The invasion was over. "Admiral," said Commander Lee softly, "final count is complete. 219 human ships lost. 15,408 crew members confirmed dead. The Armada has been completely destroyed. No survivors." Closed his eyes. 15,000 dead. 15,000 families that would receive messages telling them their loved ones were not coming home. 15,000 empty seats at dinner tables across 17 systems. "It is not a victory," he said quietly. "It is a survival. Victories are celebrated. This is simply mourned." The fleet limped back to Earth over the next several days. Damaged ships were towed by those that could still move. Wounded crew members were transferred to medical vessels. The dead were counted, named, and prepared for the journey home. Captain brought her ship, the Silent Promise, back to port at Luna Station. Her stealth frigate had survived the battle with only minor damage, but she had lost 8 of her 40 crew members. 8 empty bunks, 8 personal lockers that would need to be packed and sent to families. Ensign was among the dead. The young communications officer had been killed when a destroyer, in its death throes, had rammed their frigate. She had been 22 years old. She had been on her first real mission. She had been terrified, but she had done her duty until the very end. Visited's parents on Earth a week after the battle. They lived in a small apartment in a city by the sea. His mother had the same eyes as her daughter. Looking at her was painful. She was brave, told them. She was scared like all of us, but she never let her fear control her. She did her duty. She helped save humanity. I know that does not bring her back. I know nothing I say can fill the hole she left in your lives, but I wanted you to know that she mattered. Her sacrifice mattered. His mother wept. Her father sat in silence, staring at nothing. "Was it worth it?" the mother asked through her tears. "My daughter's life, was it worth it?" It was a question had been asking herself since the battle ended, a question with no good answer. "I hope so," she said honestly. "I hope every life we lost bought safety for millions more. I hope the galaxy remembers this day and thinks twice before threatening humanity again. But I will not lie to you. I do not know if anything is worth your daughter's life. I only know she died protecting everything she loved, and I know that she would have made the same choice again, even knowing the cost." His mother reached out and took his hand. They sat together in silence, two strangers connected by loss, and watched the sun set over the sea. In the weeks that followed, something unexpected happened. Alien ships began arriving at the edge of human space. Not warships, diplomatic vessels. 17 different species sent representatives to speak with humanity. They came with questions, not weapons. "How did you do it?" asked the ambassador from the Confederation, a species of tall, thin beings with silver skin. "The Dominion has conquered hundreds of worlds. They have destroyed civilizations that were ancient when your species was still living in caves. How did humans defeat them?" The human diplomat, a woman named Moon, smiled politely. "We were prepared," she said simply. "We knew that someday someone would come to take our worlds, so we got ready. We turned our entire solar system into a fortress. We trained our people to fight against impossible odds, and when they came, we warned them. They did not listen." "But the cost," the ambassador pressed. "You lost over 200 ships, 15,000 lives. Was such sacrifice worth it?" "It had to be worth it," replied, "because the alternative was losing everything. Humans do not measure cost the way other species do. We do not ask if survival is worth the price. We simply pay the price and survive." The ambassador was quiet for a long moment. "They were feared across the galaxy," he said finally. "Their armadas have brought empires to their knees, and humanity destroyed them completely. Your species is unexpected." "We prefer to be underestimated," said. "It gives us an advantage." 1 year after the battle, a memorial was built on a hill overlooking Seoul. It was a simple thing, a pillar of black stone bearing 15,000 names. Families came to touch the stone and remember. Soldiers came to honor their fallen comrades. Children came to learn about the price of freedom. Admiral Park, now retired from active service, visited the memorial every week. He was old and tired, his body worn down by decades of service. But he came anyway, rain or shine, to stand before the names and remember. One day his granddaughter came with him. She was 8 years old, with bright eyes and endless questions. "Grandfather," she said, reading the names she could reach, "why do so many aliens want to hurt us?" Knelt down beside her, his old knees complaining. "Not all of them do," he said gently. "Many are kind, many want to be friends, but some only understand strength. They see our small worlds and our short lives and think we are weak. But we are not weak. No, little one, we are not weak. We are the species that looked at the stars and refused to be afraid. We are the children of Earth who faced death 100 times and refused to die." The girl touched one of the names on the stone. "Will they come again, the bad ones?" "Perhaps someday." "Will we be ready?" Looked out over the city, millions of people living their lives, building, dreaming, loving. Behind them, invisible but always watching, the defense networks hummed quietly. Ready, waiting. Humanity had learned its lessons well. "We are always ready," he said. "That is what it means to be human. We hope for peace. We work for peace, but we prepare for war, because the universe does not care about our hopes. It only respects our actions." He stood up slowly and took his granddaughter's hand. "Remember these names," he told her. "Remember what they gave so that you could live free. And when you grow up, make sure their sacrifice was worth it. Build something beautiful. Create something lasting. Live a life that honors their memory." The girl nodded solemnly, not fully understanding but sensing the weight of his words. They walked away from the memorial together, the old admiral and the young girl, leaving 15,000 names behind. The names would remain on that black stone forever, a reminder to humanity and to the galaxy. The Dominion had come with 12,000 ships and 400 conquered worlds behind them. They had ignored the warning. They had called humanity weak. They had thought that numbers and fear would be enough. They were wrong. Humanity remembered, humanity prepared, and when the monsters came to the door, humanity did not run. They stood, they fought, and they won. This was the message written in fire across the stars. This was the lesson that every species in the galaxy had now learned. Do not threaten humanity. Do not ignore their warnings, because they will fight, they will sacrifice, and they will never ever surrender. The stars were quiet now, but somewhere in the darkness other empires watched and wondered. Some thought about conquest, some thought about alliance. All of them thought about that single truth that they had learned too late. Humanity was not prey. Humanity was something else entirely. And the galaxy would never forget it.